If it goes great, you're going to have a name on your plaque on the wall somewhere. If it goes sour, I'm going to blame you for the rest of my life. All right, let's do this. Welcome back to Desperate Radio. My name is Haas, and I have the honor of having a guest that I've been wanting to invite for some time, but I wanted to get my house in order. Mr. Chris Williams, thank you so much for being here from Badass Agile.
Hey, Huz. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Give us a quick 30 seconds. Who are you?
I'm the guy who hosts the Badass Agile podcast. I started my career in 1994 as a Microsoft trainer, worked my way up through development, project management, agile coaching roles, consulting executive roles. And about 8 years ago, I started the podcast. I've been an independent consultant probably for 15 now, and the owner of Fuse Chamber Incorporated, where at this point, more of what I do is focused on delivering content, training, and experiences for the modern agile leader, the modern agile coach, the modern innovation coach, creative, trying to bring more humanity into work, more joy into work, more independence and freedom into the work that we do. And I've kind of stepped away from corporate life almost altogether, but I still run the Badass Agile podcast once a week at badassagile.com.
And I am so thankful for that. And if you're not checking out badassagile.com, please do yourself a favor and check it out. Now, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Williams right here, Chris as he prefers to be called, is actually the one that pushed me and inspired me to start Desperate Radio. I've had the idea for quite some time. I had the idea for years. I joined his core program, which we'll get into in a little bit, with a bunch of other agile coaches who wanted to do more than just be another cog in a corporate wheel and felt that they can get more out of their experience and their passion. And I wasn't even thinking podcast when I joined last year. I don't think I did, Chris. And I kind of said it and I saw what you did. And then it reignited the flame inside of me again. And you just pushed me in that direction. And you've been very supportive. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for making this happen. If it goes great, you're going to have a name on your plaque on the wall somewhere. If it goes sour, I'm going to blame you for the rest of my life. I'm just kidding.
As you should. Oz, I'm glad you're doing it. I think you have a really unique and interesting voice, and it was apparent that you had something to say. And when you have something to say, we live in such fascinating times where it's so easy to get your message out there and to talk about what you love to talk about. So I'm glad you're doing it, man. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, we're going to get into our HBS segment, which is honest bullshit. We're just going to talk about something that Chris and I have talked about in the past, and something happened recently that's just, again, triggered that memory, triggered that thought, and triggered the inspiration for today's episode, which is WTF. What the F is an Agile coach? Can I give you a background context real quick? Well, I was at the gym, and a lot of us have been struggling with weight and staying healthy and staying fit. I myself, I'm pushing 50, so I know for a fact that I need to get my butt in the gym, make sure that I'm healthy, because once I hit 50, things start going south. So I've been on a good regimen for the last couple of years. I've been healthy, and knock on wood, I've been doing a lot better from where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And in the past, I've always tried to work with a trainer or a coach or a personal trainer or some sort of program. But I never, ever got it to stick, or something was missing. When I was at the gym a few weeks ago, and I've actually seen this throughout the past 6 months or so, but there was something that triggered me a couple of weeks ago where I saw a trainer working with a man about my age, and you could tell the man was out of shape and he was struggling, not with working out, with form, with stamina, with motivation. You can just tell he was struggling, and he looked like he didn't want to be there. And what was the trainer doing? On his phone, texting people, looking up, then gets back on his phone, probably either working his next appointment or filling up his schedule. I noticed the lack of disconnect between the man that he was working out with and him. And it just made me think of my times whenever I tried to work out with somebody, and the reason I failed every time was because no, there's no support. I didn't feel like they even cared. And I feel like maybe that's something that's in our industry that's probably currently present.
You make an excellent point. I've been in similar situations probably 20 years ago. I tried to get in shape by going to a gym, and they give you a free training session because they feel like, once you meet our trainers, you're not going to want to try and work this on your own. And the guy did the same thing. He was just standing there every time someone attractive walked by, his head was on a swivel and he would stand up and go, oh, and, give a standing ovation kind of thing. And in a way that you couldn't get away with in 2025, that's for sure. And I'm like, hey, I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? He was just like, just do this, do this. Yeah, I don't know if he was watching me half the time. So I agree. And I've been a coach and I've been coached and I'm still coached to this day. So I can certainly sense the difference between a great coach and one who is somehow just managed to get a certification and managed to get a job and managed to get some clients, whether it's corporate coaches, individual or personal coaches, it really doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who are just there and they're kind of conflating the role of a teacher. So an instructor who shows you steps, who maybe shows you great form if they're paying attention, and someone who is truly coaching someone to move from wherever they are to the place they're trying to go. You got to remember that when someone hires a coach, it's because there's somewhere they're trying to get to that they can't get to on their own. And it's usually not for lack of knowledge about the steps, because the steps you can read in a manual. You watch a YouTube video, especially now, for form, right? You don't have to have someone tell you, keep your elbows tucked in. So it's probably not the case that they're there to show you individual technique. They're there to help you as an individual person, though, with your specific personality and your specific challenges, get through or past whatever you can't get through or past on your own. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a coach.
It made me think of other things too. I'm an NFL guy. I love the NFL, and I'm gonna say something that's gonna offend a lot of people. I love the New York Giants. I bleed blue, as I always say. I think you're a hockey guy. I don't want to perpetuate the stereotype of being Canadian, and
I'm probably a baseball guy. I'm a hockey guy during the playoffs. So right now I'm very excited for hockey. But I was actually, in terms of sports I play, I'm a boxing guy. So that's more of an individual coaching situation because it's one-on-one. You're usually not coaching a team, right? So you're not coaching people around teamwork. It's not a team sport.
exactly. And it made me think of, what do great coaches have in common in sports? And what do bad coaches have in common also in sports? I think we've seen this before. If we stick with the NFL or the NBA or even baseball, good coaches know how to rally the team and get them motivated and get them to perform well. And when that team usually doesn't perform well, they feel like they'll let their coach down and their peers down and their teammates down. And that's true also in our industry, I believe. You have coaches who have multiple certifications in different facets of Agile, whether it be safe, whether it be Scrum at scale, it doesn't matter. And they know everything and they regurgitate every single piece of information that's out there that you're ever going to Google, try to find out on your own. But in my personal opinion, that doesn't make a great coach. What do you think makes a great coach, Chris?
Ooh, I think that they have to be able to move you towards whatever outcome you want based on the unique challenges that you present in the performance moment and beyond. So we could take two examples. If you're talking about coaching a sport, there are habits and mindsets, right? They always work in pairs. You have to have a certain mindset and habits that surround that mindset. Mindsets around victory, mindsets around challenge and failure. A great coach can teach those mindsets and help people break through the mental barriers that inhibit performance. But of course, there are specific physical habits, things that you do that are affected by that mindset. And a great coach teaches you both on and off the field. The idea is to develop the success patterns offline that will create victory in the moment. So if you're talking about a baseball coach, you're drilling your players on, are we picking up the ball with both hands? Are we picking up the ball in such a way that we reduce errors? Are we swinging the bat in such a way that we can control where the ball hits the bat and therefore where the ball goes in terms of its direction? Are we training them how to see the ball so that we're not swinging at junk, but at the same time we can connect when it really counts? Are we teaching them mental self-control? So if they're slumping, are they staying positive? All of those things go into the game day performance, and they have to be there before game day, which is tricky because game day is the only moment that has the pressure that truly affects performance. So really, what do? We can talk about failure in an agile team room, for example. Yeah, we love failure. We embrace failure. But when it's really on the line and failure is in front of us, do we really embrace it and say, you know what, it's okay if this doesn't work? My ego's not attached to being right. My ego's not attached to da-da-da. And then can I fail gracefully, take my learning as quickly as possible, and then adjust and improve? Sometimes there's a difference between what happens in practice and what happens in the field. So a great coach knows the difference between where you're trying to go, so your outcome, your goals, where you are, and knows how to intuit what are the things that are keeping you from getting you where you're trying to go. Why is there a gap between the place that you're trying to get to and your current state? And that will be different for every person you coach, every organization you coach, and every scenario or every team objective that you coach. And so a great coach knows how to intuit those things and to say what's needed here, because there will be a time where you're not needed here. And so, I think we overcomplicate things. We try to make a profession and eke out a need for our services by making this way more complicated than it actually is. But a great coach should be able to stand back, watch a team, intuit what's needed and what's not, and then help the team make improvements based on their experience. And sometimes the coach won't know what's needed, and all they can do is experiment with the individual player or the individual team member. A bad coach is the antithesis of all of those things. A bad coach thinks that there's only one way to do it right. A bad coach focuses more on an individual's performance or shortcomings or what they're not doing. There's all kinds of things that a coach can attach to their coaching that have to do more with them than the person they're trying to help. So it's based on their experiences, their belief systems, their value systems. When I go to a coach, they always ask me, especially the great ones, what do you want to work on today? Yeah. But at the same time, a coach has to know, when do I need to make you better at something you can't see? I mentioned intuiting what it is that they need. If they knew what needed improvement, 9 times out of 10, they'd make the required change. And then, of course, there's the 1 time out of 10 people like me who, if there's something you're really trying to get to and you know what the steps are and you know you're trying to improve, I still don't do the right things. And that happens for a different reason. Maybe the person's afraid to try. Maybe they're afraid to fail. Maybe they're afraid to succeed. A great coach knows how to handle all the mental too. Because I mentioned before, mindset and habit always travel in pairs. So I think one of the things that a bad coach can't do is coach into the unseen, the stuff that's not being said. When they can uncover, I know why you're struggling. I know what's really going on here. And I always say there are no such things as agile problems, only human problems. So a great agile coach spends a good deal of their time dwelling in the human, right? The aspects of performance that are psychological rather than procedural.
Exactly. I always say Agile is not broken. I think that was one of our first episodes where I said Agile is not broken. We are. When a car gets into an accident, is it really the car's fault? No, it's probably the driver's fault. So with that said, why do you think some coaches are bad at being a coach, while other coaches are better.
Well, I think it's because that's the way it's sold. I think anytime a person can train or teach, they start looking around saying, what's next? How would I increase my income? How would I do more with the same amount of time, the same number of hours in a day? And they start thinking, well, I should be a coach. Especially in the agile world, that's like a progression of career titles in the certification business. That's how they sell it to you. First, you become a master of the Scrum, then you become a professional Scrum master, then you become a Scrum trainer and or an agile coach. So it's logical that with time in the game, you would naturally move away from being, think of baseball or football. Once you can no longer play, or if you couldn't make the team as a player, eventually your career tends towards the helping others, the coaching, right? So your knowledge of the game wasn't maybe, is no longer enough to keep you on the field. You're a retired player. You've crossed that age barrier, or some physical element knocked you out of the game. And now you're still able to give by coaching teams because you've been there and had the experience. But other people see that and say, oh, the minute I get bored or don't make enough money as a Scrum master or as a developer, the natural place to go is coaching others. And it's unfortunately not true that a great developer or a great quarterback necessarily makes a great coach. Because of those people's skills, if you can't bring people together and move them in a direction, if you can't stoke their passion and drive better levels of performance, you may not have the coaching gene or the coaching trait that will make you successful. And there's nothing to guarantee that in our industry, right? In Agile, it's like, you want to be a coach? Come over here. Come over here. Come here. Want to buy a course? Want to buy a course? Here. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for this coaching track. I'll make you a coach. And then I remember I told you I started my career in the training industry. I remember all too well when in the beginning, I didn't have to pass any tests. I didn't have to take any courses. They handed me a binder and said, go teach, you start Monday, because the demand was so great. And so we learned on our feet. It was good for some of us, but it also let a lot of bad trainers through the cracks, because who was there to watch them and offer advice? Who was there to help them move through different levels of accomplishment or expertise as a trainer? Nobody. And it's the same thing with coaching. It's like, if you pass the test, then you're a coach. And people were like, man, you know what? I paid like $50 to write the test and I failed it and I wrote it again. I failed it. I wrote it again and I failed it and I wrote it again. I failed it. I don't want to do this certification thing anymore. I wish there was an easier way for me to get my cert. And they're like, whoa. Don't stop spending money. What if I made you a book that kind of, I don't know, had all the test answers in it? Well, that's what happened in the Microsoft world. They started making exam prep guides that eventually, devolved into, if you get this question, here's the right answer. And so we had all these people who were paper certified, but knew nothing and really couldn't bring anything to the craft. As the certification was called certified system engineer, and then there was certified developer. And you would be shocked at how many people were certified but didn't really know much, couldn't sit down and troubleshoot, couldn't solve problems, couldn't test code, couldn't write good code, despite the fact that they were certified. So what stops a bad agile coach from slipping through the cracks? A multiple choice question on something, even a panel of people sitting there saying, what would you do? If I know what question is coming and what kind of answer tickles their ears, I can eventually know what to say to please the algorithm, but I may not be a good coach.
That is very true.
Difference.
That is very true. Without pointing out titles, I worked with what I'm going to call a senior coach a few years ago at a PI planning, and he disappeared for a few hours. And I remember texting him and I said, hey, they're about to start something where we need you. Can you make sure you come back? And he showed up with a big chip on his shoulder, and he had that look of discontent of being there for me. How dare I ask him to show up? And then literally while we're in the conference, we are watching these people put together their plans. He texted me and he said, Was there something pressing that needed the experience of a trainer? And that was his whole attitude. And I feel like there are a lot of coaches out there with so many titles, so many certifications next to their name with that attitude. They regurgitate information. Like you said, they're trying to attract that algorithm, the human algorithm inside the leadership, the decision makers to hear, oh, this is the guy that's going to help us. It's because of that I actually do this every time I give a class. I am enabled to give classes in SAFe, whether it's Scrum Master, RTE, LPM, it doesn't matter. I'm certified to give all these classes. And I always ask a question at the beginning of every class. Are you here to get certified, or do you really want to know how to use this? And you'll get maybe 60% saying, I want to know how to do this, versus the 40% that say, I'm just here to get certified. Maybe there's a 10% in there that says, I'm just here because I was told to come here. But there's a genuine interest in people wanting to learn how to do these things. And I think this is why I started Desk Parent Radio. This is why I'm starting my own cohort program where you come in. I teach you how to use that certification. I teach you how to apply it. I teach you what's the point of having that certification. If you're going to be a Scrum Master, yippee, yay, now what? That was me when I first became a Scrum Master. Luckily for me, I had a lead at that time that was very genuinely interested in my success. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I'm so driven by the success of people that I certify or teach or coach or agile their way into their careers.
You make an excellent point. And thank you for that, because when you first asked me the question, what makes a good coach or a bad coach? I'm like, I'm thinking down a certain lane, but there's all these other lanes that am I even the right person to answer this question? Or is it too early in the morning because I feel like I'm not thinking 360 degrees. And you brought up a really great point that opened up one of those vistas, is that humility is a key component. The answers to everything you need in life are generally found in The Empire Strikes Back, and you can pretty much trim it down to the Yoda and Luke sequence, because what we can learn from that is that the master, sure, they know tons of stuff, but I remember this as a boxing coach. People used to come in and sign up, and they jump rope for 10 minutes, and it wasn't long before they're like, can you just get to the good stuff? Can you just show me how to throw a punch that will knock out anybody? I don't know why people ask those questions. Well, I do, but it's a dumb question, and it's not the question you really want answered. And there used to be some people I would say, look, I can't train you. I can't coach you because there's nothing for you to learn. You don't want to learn the fine art of boxing. You don't want to learn the elegance of becoming a fighter. You don't want to learn how to build confidence. You don't want to learn how to craft your body into a weapon that you never have to use. You're not interested in that stuff. You want to intimidate somebody. Somebody hurt you, somebody shamed you. You're looking for revenge. You're looking for power. You're looking for control. And that's what you want me to give you. And some people will teach you that, but I'm not one of those people. And I don't think it works. If I show you how to throw, let's say, an outside punch like a hook, you'd be like, great. And then the minute you go to use it, the situation is not like the one we rehearsed, and you don't have the skills in front of you. So what are you going to do with that hook if you can't throw it, or it doesn't work on this person? Or that person's left-handed. If they're a southpaw, a hook won't land in the same spot. Now you got to relearn and adjust a little bit. And I think it's important for a coach to, there's a saying that the sage is like water, that they lay low, right? Water always fills the lowest point first, and all the streams and all the waterfalls and all the rivers eventually flow to you. You don't need to be up high and exalted where everyone can see you to be effective. You have to be the opposite. You can't crave glory. You can't love being right. Generally speaking, I have a program similar to yours called The Forge. And when I start people off, I say, look, if you're here to learn Scrum, to memorize the steps of Scrum, or how to use tools like Miro and Jira, I'm not the teacher for you. I teach all the other stuff, because that stuff you could get from a book. You could get it from a 20-minute YouTube video. So I think that one of the things that a great coach has to be is not, I don't love the word servant leader because a lot of people mix that up with I'll bring you coffee and donuts. And that's what I see when I see people talking about a day in the life of the Scrum Master. It's like, I go and get the donuts for the team. It's like, no, you don't. That's not the job of a Scrum Master. That's what you're being paid to do. Your job is to be present, to be supportive, to let people try experiments, to try their newfound skills, to tap people back into the right lane if they go off track, maybe, but never publicly, to let them do what they're going to do, let them have the bumps and bruises and the scrapes, because that's where the lessons are. And at the same time, to be humble enough to say, I didn't know that that would work. Cool. I've added something new to my quiver, added something new to my notebook. And so a lot of it, here's one thing I've learned from so many years of doing the Forge and teaching Agile people. Agile people are impact people. They're in this business because they want to help others. They want to help others get somewhere. They like the idea that if I do what I do well, meaning you, the Agile coach or Scrum Master, if you're doing your job well, you're helping people help their companies be more successful, have their companies look on them as someone that they can trust, they can depend on. But more than that, when they go home at the end of the day, they feel like they did something that matters. This is important to Agile coaches. Otherwise, they would have got into something else. But if you've taken on that moniker, the chance is that you like helping people perform at their best. You're trying to help a team get a result, win the Stanley Cup, or deliver something on time, or maybe even ahead of budget, or with a tremendous amount of learning and improvement. Those things matter to you. You also see the individuals, though, and what drives them, what makes them happy, what makes them feel fulfilled. When I see a student, a pupil, a coachee go home and say, yes, I'm so glad I chose this career because I get to ... then I feel like there's some magic's happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. And it is exactly how I feel. That's why I feel like I've gone into coaching. If you've seen my first episode or my origin story, you heard me say I was just chasing a paycheck. There's a lot of people out there, like you said, chasing a paycheck, that paper that says that pay this guy more, pay this gal more, pay them more. And you can get paid more, but that doesn't mean that you can't have the passion and the responsibility of making sure that what you're coaching sticks. Chris, you said a really good line to me the other day, and I wanted to steal it, but I don't remember it. I wrote it down, but I'm not going to walk over, about perfect for somebody. Can you please tell us that line?
Yeah, I don't know if I have it memorized either. A lot of this stuff is off the cuff, but it's, I may not be perfect or perfect for you, or I may not always be right, but I'm perfect for somebody, which means that my leadership, my style of teaching and what I teach is a perfect match for certain person. But I'm not all things to everyone. And because the things I talk about are a little bit counterculture, because I believe that a lot of the stuff that's being peddled is nonsense. It's hogwash. It doesn't make a great coach.
It's
It doesn't
bullshit.
it's bullshit. It doesn't make a better leader, doesn't make a better performer. And so I teach all the other stuff. I love, there's the Navy SEALs have a saying that we do what works and we let science catch up. So you, with all of your theory and all of this stuff, yeah. But the things that we've done have been tested in fire. And so we have something that we know works. It may not be for you. For you, you may like another approach. You may like another theory or technique or school of thinking. And that's great. Go do that. But if you think like me and you're interested in the same kind of results that I've gotten, then follow me. Maybe the things that I've done, tried, learned, and can transmit would be useful to you. Yeah. But people who are not like me, who are radically opposed to, I don't know how many times I go into new clients and I talk about failure. And the first thing they say is, could you not use, we'll love what you're talking about, but could you not use that F word though? It's like, well, I can change the language if you want, but your fear of the language isn't going to change what's sitting right in front of you. So I teach that stuff very plainly. And if you're not on board, if you're not in line, it's not going to work for you. I teach meditation in much of what I do because I believe that if you don't have a calm, centered, focused mind, none of this stuff will work anyway. And during the performance moment, when the poop hits the fan, you're not going to be as useful as you could be. So I teach breath work, meditation. We teach a bit of basic psychology. We teach all the stuff around performance that matters. It mattered to me. It helped me improve. So if you're like me and you started where I started, this will probably help you. But if you don't believe what I'm talking about, we're not ready yet. It's like when Master Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the swamp being a quarter of Luke's size. And Luke can't do it. He hasn't quite mastered the skill yet. Yoda does it literally with his eyes closed, and Luke is looking at it saying, I don't believe it. And he's like, dude, that's why you fail. Because you're not ready for this to be true. So it will never be true.
Chris, I just want to say you're one of the coolest, smoothest Gen Xer out there. Whether it be boxing, Star Wars, yoga, you teach yoga or meditation rather?
Yeah, I teach meditation, breath work.
Meditation. I've known you for almost a year. It's the first time I hear that you teach meditation in your Agile line of work.
But
come on.
You know, and a lot of times when I teach it in the Forge, I've had people, I could name them for you, who are like, I don't want to learn this. This is stupid. And so you have to drag them for a little bit. And then at the end of the course, if you ask them what was the most valuable thing that they learned, it'll tend to be how to center my thoughts, be more aware of my thoughts and emotions. Because if you fly off the handle, like if I were to come up to you, not that I would do this to a student, but your employers will do this and say, you're not a very good Agile coach, and just walk out of the room, you're going to be, you're going to be looking for something to fire back, right? Your ego's dented. And most people don't know how to handle that because, like being cut off in traffic, it is an automatic process of going downhill and starting to react, starting to think about, well, what meaning can I infer from you're not a very good Agile coach? And then you start thinking about how to cover up the holes and the bruises in your ego that caused. You start defending yourself, and you start defending yourself with insults. But this is stuff you've been trained to do as a kid. If you want to unlearn those bad behaviors, because as a CEO, you can walk up to most CEOs and if you say you're not a very good CEO, they know different, right? And either they'll react very badly because they may not be emotionally mature, but hopefully most of them would have the emotional maturity to say, what do you mean by that? What is it that you see that I need to work on and fix and do differently, right? This is a learning opportunity. But if you don't have the presence of mind to handle that, because the minute you hear something or see something, your monkey mind starts swirling around and picking up the brooms and trying to fix stuff and clean it up, often without your permission or knowledge, you're going to make a bigger mess. So yeah, and I learned this, by the way, from Warriors. I went through a program called Unbeatable Mind, which was run by ex-special operations people from the United States Navy. And they taught me this. So I had read, in Tim Ferriss in his book, Tools of Titans, he mentions that the only thing that all the people he interviews athletes, he interviews financial people who are wealthy. He interviews captains of industry, masters of entertainment. And the only thing he could find that congealed that people, these high performers said and did in common was that they meditated. Executives, athletes, they all visualize, meditate. They know how to use their brains as weapons. So that in the moment of performance, they're prepared as you can be. And it's a game changer. But people aren't going to believe that until you do it. So again, that is why you fail.
I get this, by the way, once a week from Chris. So you should be very jealous of me because I have these one-on-ones with Chris almost every week, and I get all this kind of knowledge and wisdom. Chris, what should Agile coaching look like?
You know something? I had a student teach me something just the other day. He's from Forge Cohort 2, way back in the day. His name's Todd. And we still talk to this day. He, like you, is a podcaster. He loves to talk about audio engineering, which I do too, because I have a heritage in that. And he worked for a company. And while I was coaching him, he got a really great job that he really wanted. And the job no longer exists. He's still with the company, but the job doesn't exist. So what happened to the job? And it was like an Agile coach inside an Agile Center of Excellence. And basically, they disbanded the whole COE. I said, why did that happen? And he gave me a phrase that I love using is like, Agile is table stakes now. Boom. That's it. People say, is Agile dead? Is Agile not dead? Agile principles are good principles, no matter what. They're easy to learn, hard to follow, but they're also table stakes at this point. 25 years in, if we can't take something that's supposed to be simple and master their application, we've done something wrong. We've overcomplicated it. We've made it unreachable. Somehow, these 10 principles should be so easy to bring to practice. And they're not for some reason. The reason I think I know is that, as with most good things in life, the hard thing is under the surface. It's not the technique. It's the mindset and the courage required to implement the technique. If you ask people why Agile fails, the answer is simple. It's unsupported, poorly understood, not planned for properly, blah, blah, blah. You get the same answers over and over. Changing that requires pushing upwards in the organization and changing culture around people who are not great leaders and coaches sometimes. They're not open. And when you're not open, none of this will work. So it's expected that the techniques of thinking iteratively, of MVPing scope, of planning quickly, not doing a ton of upfront documentation, those things are easy to do. And we expect everyone to understand their value and accept them as current, common practice. So what is there to do for an Agile Center of Excellence? How much can you really improve that? Well, as a coach, if you can add more value beyond the training of the table stakes skills, you will always be valuable as a coach. What could that mean? A great coach, again, understands outcomes. So can you get better at understanding what's valuable to the organization? How are they measured? What do they say to shareholders? What are those shareholders looking for? Are they looking to increase revenue? And if so, what are the challenges to increasing revenue? Do we not have enough products? Do we not release them quickly enough? Do we not test those products with customers to see if they'll buy them before we make them, so we waste money? What's not working for the organization? Be someone who solves problems for the organization rather than somebody who makes you more scrummy, because there's no value in that anymore. That's table stakes now. I thought that was brilliant. So a great Agile coach helps an organization achieve whatever outcome they're looking for, especially the ones that are elusive and hard to get, and coaches individuals and teams to coordinate towards those outcomes. I think that's the simplest way to put it. That's what Agile coaching should be today.
I have a line that I use. I don't know if you agree with it. A sign of a good Agile coach is someone that works themselves out of a job.
Yeah, of course. And we talked about that before. There will come a day when I don't need you anymore, but it's not you talk yourself out of a job. You talk yourself out of a job teaching Agile. You never talk yourself out of a job sitting down with a bunch of people responsible for making a dream come true and saying, all right, what's holding you back? If you're a Major League Baseball player and you're slumping, your average went from 320 to 240. Your dream's not coming true. My job as a coach is to scratch my chin and say, geez, the things that used to work stopped working. What the hell's going on? Yeah? Exactly. That's what you get paid for, is solving those kinds of problems. I know people who pay tons of money to have someone work on their golf swing, right? Just to tweak it a little bit. Anyone can grab a stick and hit that ball, but it's trying to improve your form, where your elbows bend, how you hold the thing, what are you focused on, what's going through your head. All of those little tweaks have the potential to change your game. And that's what I think we should be as Agile coaches, as game changers. Boom.
Excellent. Excellent. Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me at badassagile.com. Check out my 2 programs. I have the Forge, which is my year-long immersion experience where I teach all of this stuff, teach you the Jedi skills. I have a year-long version, and now I have a 12-week mini version called the Forge Lightning for people who just want to get their feet wet and get some of the goodies up and running a little quicker. And then I have the Forge Genesis, which I came by accident. And it came from people like you who said, we don't really want to learn Agile skill. We don't need to learn how to be better coaches so much. The industry is changing so much that we want to learn how to take our own ideas, our own skills, and make them marketable. Basically, I want to go out there like an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur and bring my ideas, my skills, and my offering to market. And I want to make a living. I want to have the freedom of not, doing Agile for a bank. I always say, who buys the most Agile? The people that can afford to. Banks, big insurance, big companies that tend to struggle the most because of their size. Well, if you have an offering, whether it's a training you've mastered or honed to the point where it's really effective, maybe you have a product, digital, otherwise, physical. Maybe you have a service. Maybe you want to bring together 10 of your friends who all believe the same thing. And you want to make a straight line through an organization, preaching the gospel of whatever it is you do, some advanced Jedi version of Agile that you've stumbled across that's really working, something niche-y, something specific to, let's say, automotive. Like, who is out there teaching Agile to the marketing people for a medium-sized public library? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you've got something niche-y that you can bring to the table, having the courage to put your product out there, hang a shingle, go it out on your own, totally different set of skills. And I've been there and I've done that. So now I teach people through the Forge Genesis how to frame your idea, how to find your ideal customer, how to communicate the value of your idea to a CEO or to a potential prospect, how to market what you do, how to write good copy, how to use social media to build your funnel and generate interest around your product. Well, these are things that Agile people have never been taught. So that's what the Forge Genesis is about. And you are in beta 1 or the first run, cohort 1 of the Forge Genesis. And that's hopefully just the beginning, or the genesis, if you will, of Dead Sprint Radio and all the things that you're going to do in the future, Haas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I am honored to be part of that program. It really has helped me a lot. It unlocked my intrinsic motivation. You like that?
What I'm more interested in is taking badasses and unleashing them, right? So they're always saying, I wish I could, I'm gonna. Converting that gonna into a done thing. There's no difference, Haas, between you and all the people that you wish you could emulate. And so the fact that you're doing this show and putting it out there, that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like
and honestly, I feel like I'm learning something new and exciting. I mean, if this whole Agile coaching doesn't work, I have video editing and podcasting in the future. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. Like, if the conversation moves away from agility, well, what do you do next? Well, you have the requisite skills of bringing ideas to life and putting them into market. So if Agile pivots and changes a little and becomes something else, Schmagile, let's say they decide to call it, well, you're at the forefront of people out there talking about it and being visible with it. And I can tell you from experience that having a YouTube channel, a podcast, is like a business card for the 2020s, man. So you're doing it.
Yep, exactly. Before we wrap up, I just want to say you are literally the first guest in the new Dead Sprint recording space. How do you like it so far?
I love it, dude. This is great. So first of all, I like your background. I like the on-air sign. Mine's kind of boring, so I'm inspired by it. I think it's great, and I'm so glad that you're doing it.
Thank you. And you need to, people need to see you more. So I'm glad that you've given out your information for your cohort and for your Badass Agile. And please go join. Please go follow. It is something that's gonna change your life. I don't use those words lightly.
Thank you,
Chris.
I appreciate that.
Chris, thank you so much for being part of the movement. Thank you for being on Dead Sprint Radio. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share. You want to be a guest on the podcast, send me a note and leave a comment, and we'll make it happen. All right? This is Deadspin Radio. I'm going to stand by my statement, and I'm going to market this for you. You are the smoothest Gen X nerd that I've known.
Keep building, Haas. Thank you very much.